Welcome to Ed Leader with your host, Dr. Rob Jackson. Join Dr. Jackson for conversations and reflections on improving educational leadership from the classroom to the boardroom and beyond. Educational leadership is an ever-evolving opportunity to make a real and lasting difference in the lives of students, parents, and the community. And now, here's your host, Dr. Rob Jackson.
Hi friends, welcome to the Ed Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Jackson, and I want to thank you for spending time with me today as I seek to add value to your work and to your professional and personal life through this podcast. Thank you for all of the kind words and positive ratings and reviews. Because of you, the Ed Leader Podcast community continues to grow worldwide with listeners now in 1,889 cities and 66 countries around the world. If you have not, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast on your favorite podcast player and share it with your network of colleagues and friends. Remember, you can find show notes, links to the references that are cited during each episode, and find each of the previous regular season episodes and the 3 special series that we have done at drrobjackson.com. Today's episode is one that I've been awaiting with great excitement from the moment my guest accepted the invitation to spend some time with us all on the Ed Leader Podcast. Let's get to it. The name Stephen Covey is synonymous with leadership. The late, great Stephen R. Covey wrote the gold standard in leadership and personal development books when he wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. His son, today's guest, Stephen M.R. Covey, took up the mantle, and now with over 2 million copies sold of his first book, The Speed of Trust, and with his latest book, Trust and Inspire, How Great Leaders Inspire Greatness in Others, a Wall Street Journal #1 bestseller, it is clear that the Covey family will be long remembered for advancing leadership in our time. Please help me welcome a very special guest to the Ed Leader Podcast, Mr. Stephen M.R. Covey. I tell you what, I am feeling like it is Christmas Day to have the opportunity to have a conversation with someone who is one of my heroes who I've just absolutely eaten up his words. Stephen M.R. Covey, welcome to the Ed Leader Podcast, and thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, you are welcome, Rob. I'm equally excited and delighted to be with you and to have this conversation. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, there's lots that I'd love to chat about. I will tell you that I'm a bit of perhaps a book nerd, particularly around leadership. I love to find great books. And one of the things that strikes me is when a book absolutely grabs me from the outset and I can't put it down. And so when your newest book, Trust and Inspire, How Truly Great Leaders Unleash Greatness in Others, when I opened it up and you started with this powerful, powerful story from Death Valley, a barren wasteland, into a field of flowers, I was completely hooked. Oh my goodness. Like you caught in that moment everything that I desire in leadership and want in leadership. And so first of all, kudos to you as an author for just grabbing the reader with that. How did that story kind of come to you? How did you choose that to start this latest book?
Yeah, well, I thought it was a perfect metaphor for kind of the essence of this book, that there's greatness inside of people. It's often unseen.
Yes.
And our job as leaders is more being like a gardener that's creating the conditions for the seeds to grow than it is, say, being a mechanic that's trying to fix things and fix people. And so the story, I heard initially the story from the late, great Sir Kenneth Robinson. That he basically, that's where I first learned of the story of how Death Valley that, gets no rain and it's so hot. So because it's hot and dry, nothing grows. But then for some unexplained reason, 6 inches of rain falls in just a brief period, unprecedented. And sure enough, just a short time later, these wildflowers pop up and carpet the entire valley. And so it turns out it wasn't dead after all. Death Valley, Sir Kenneth Robinson said, maybe we shouldn't call it Death Valley, but instead Dormant Valley. Not quite as catchy, but probably a lot more accurate. and the whole idea is that, look, the seeds were there. They were there all along, but they were lying dormant. But they were still there. There was still power and life in the seed. But the conditions were not enabling those seeds to grow and to flourish. When the conditions changed, and when water came, when the rain came that didn't normally happen, these seeds suddenly grew and these wildflowers popped up. And to me, it was a perfect metaphor of
absolutely
that the greatness is in the people. The potential is in the people, the talent in our students, in our teachers, in our staff members. It's in them. And our job as leaders is to create the right conditions for the people to flourish, to grow, to blossom. But always remember that the power and the life is in the seed, and the power and the life is in the people. So it's not about us. It's about what we can do for them to grow. But it's a gardener metaphor as opposed to a mechanical metaphor of leadership of I'm tinkering, I'm fixing people and things. No, I'm growing people. I'm a gardener, not a mechanic.
I absolutely love that, right? I mean, I can picture being in the barren wasteland and that's like, and I can picture walking through this field of wildflowers. And I loved how you asked the question, what happened to create the conditions for these flowers to grow? As I shared with you previously, I shared the book and this particular story with our administrators. And in sharing the story, I then asked them the question, similar to a question you asked, what would it feel like in our schools? What are the conditions that would be present to actually be walking through the field of wildflowers? Now, our schools, our school system are not barren wastelands, right? They are ripe with potential and ready for incredible performance. But I wondered from them, what are those conditions? And so as the author of Trust and Inspire, if we were to walk you into our schools, what would you expect to feel and see and hear in our schools if they were being led by Trust and Inspire leaders?
Yeah. Well, it would start first with kind of the mindset, the paradigm of how everybody views people.
Yes.
And also how we view and see leadership and the job of leadership. And so because that I love how Henry David Thoreau put it. He said, it's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. And so you could look at someone and not see the greatness and the talent inside of that person, but it might be in there, just like a dormant seed at Death Valley. So again, it might not be that it's a barren wasteland, but it might be that there's some seeds that aren't growing yet.
There you go.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that there's not life in the seed. It just means that maybe we haven't found the right way to see that greatness or communicate that greatness so the person can come to see it themselves, to develop it, to unleash it. And so it's the first of all, how do we see people? Do we see the greatness inside of everyone? Do we see the gifts and the talents? And do we see people as whole people? And, meaning a body and a heart and a mind and a spirit. And we're trying to bring our best selves, our whole selves to work. And when we see people as whole people with greatness inside of them, that's a different paradigm of how we view people than viewing it as, well, some people have gifts and talents and others don't. And, and people, especially like a leader looking at staff, hey, look, all they care about is the money. Yeah, they care about money. Everyone does. That's the body, but they also have a heart. They want to care and connect and belong.
Yes.
They want to feel belonging and feel a sense of caring from each other and from their leaders and as well as from the students and the like. And they have a mind. So they want to grow and to develop. And they have a spirit, so they want to contribute. and make a difference and matter and leave a legacy and have significance. So they're a whole person with greatness inside of them. And that's true of how we view as a leader, how we view our teachers, how we view our staff members, how we view other leaders, other administrators, as well as clearly how we view our students. That's right. And so they would see that, they would see the whole person with greatness inside of them. They'd also see that our role as a leader is one of stewardship. It's about our responsibilities, not rights. And so it's not position. It's the influence we can have. And it's who we are as a leader, and, not the title we hold and how we serve. And so we try to put service above self-interest. And I think educators do that. I think teachers do that. I think great education leaders do that really well. And we believe that there's enough for everyone. So we elevate caring above competing. Yes. We can compete against standards. We can compete in the broader marketplace, but we care and collaborate in the workplace. And then we always try to model it and go first, is the idea that we know that real enduring influence is always inside out more than outside in. So we go first as a leader. So that's what they would see. They'd see leaders modeling the behaviors that they would like to see. We would see a sense of the greatness inside of people, and people as whole people. We'd have a sense of belonging, a sense of real connection, of caring, of love. And we'd also really, more than anything, I think, just view our role as we're stewards. We have a stewardship of responsibilities to model, to trust, to inspire, to bring out the greatness that's inside of everyone. And that's kind of the overarching thing that I think we would see in this kind of environment. Absolutely. What would you add to that? Because you do this, Rob.
Well, so thank you so much for what you just shared. I love words, Stephen, and you took 3 words and you put them together in a very powerful way. And I have just absolutely been reflecting on the way you took these 3 words. I knew each of the 3 words, but you put them together, seemingly a simple little phrase, but incredibly profound. You said, leadership is stewardship. And so as I began to think about my own paradigm of what is leadership and my paradigm of what is stewardship, it really came together in this really powerful way for me to say that, we are the stewards of a moment. As a leader, we're here for a moment. At some point, someone was potentially here before us, unless we started the school or started the company, et cetera. And at some point, someone else will take up that mantle of leadership. But as we have the opportunity to be stewards of this moment, to use the opportunity to serve others, to enrich others and equip others, truly leadership is stewardship. And that as simple as it sounds, is so very profound. Leadership is stewardship.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I hope so. And I agree with that. It's a powerful, powerful statement. And it's a paradigm shifting statement. Because for some, leadership is rights, and leadership is position, and I'm saying, no, it's stewardship, which is responsibility that's implicit with being a leader. It's responsibility, not rights. And when you see yourself as a steward, not the boss, but as a steward, it just changes everything. And I like to say that the quickest way to change your behavior is to change your name and change your role. So suddenly, if rather than I'm the boss, I'm a steward. And my role is not, directing, instructing people, but it's stewardship, a responsibility to make sure that I leave people and things better because I was there, better than I found them. And, we apply stewardship in nature a lot, which is great. Yes. We should, but it also is part of leadership. And so that was encapsulated in those 3 words. Yes. It was very intentional. And it was trying to say, this is a paradigm shift. that leadership is stewardship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're at our best as leaders when we are equipping others, when we get it, that we're supposed to serve others. And I really appreciate that. I want to pull back for just a second before we delve in further to trust and inspire, because you have this incredibly unique story. And it's one that I was really reflecting on, that others are in a similar situation, although different. And so I want to pull from you some of your experience and expertise. And what I'm referring to is, I know that you are number 4 of 6 when it comes to Stephen Covey's. And number 3 was kind of well known, right? Your
Yes.
dad, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, changed the world. I understand his book was one of the top 2 most influential of the 20th century, which is incredible. Huge, huge. Most of us in leadership can name the 7 habits from the top of our mind. We have schools that are Leaders in Me schools based around those concepts. Huge, huge, huge. So here you are, little Stephen M.R. Covey, and you make this decision that you want to work in the field of leadership and write about leadership. And you're standing in this shadow of this giant among leadership gurus. And I want to compare that to, and then kind of come back and have you share with us how you approach that and how you've been so successful in your own right, as having millions of copies, literally, of Speed of Trust and Trust and Inspire, #1 best-selling author. So it's worked out for you. But here's how I want to compare it. So we have principals who walk into a school following a highly regarded, deeply respected principal, and they come in and they have to stand in that shadow and serve in that moment. Superintendents who come into a school system following somebody who's been well loved. Teachers who come into a classroom following someone who's just been a giant among teachers. And in that moment, and some of them are in that moment right now today as school is just getting started out. And as somebody who has probably experienced that moment more than most will, following your dad into this work, share with us how you found the courage to kind of stand on your own 2 feet, to take from your dad what you could, but then to be a unique voice. How did you do that work? And what recommendations might you have for people who are following great people and have to move forward because now they're the stewards of that leadership opportunity?
Yeah. Well, thanks for that question, Rob. It's really quite perceptive and insightful. And I like how you're not just replying it to me, but saying this is a common thing that we might have in education when a new principal comes in following an extraordinary principal, a new superintendent or assistant, comes in following someone that was, quite remarkable. And so it plays out everywhere. So for me, it's interesting. I always felt like I wanted to be part of leadership development because of how important it was. But I was a little reluctant to follow my dad, and I was a little self-conscious of it. So initially, Rob, I went down the kind of the business side, and I was on the business side. My dad was the thought leader. He was the author. He was the speaker. It was a little daunting for me to think I could follow in his footsteps. So I kind of tried to first carve out my own path of saying, look, I'll be an operator. I'll run this as a business. I won't try to do what he does because I thought I can't measure up to that. I mean, I was a little bit fearful and a little bit scared and timid to try, thinking no matter what, I'll be just at best a poor man's version. And so I went down a different path initially, and I did that for a good 15 years, and I felt like I did a good job there, and I had some talent in that area to build the business and to turn it into a business. But here was 2 things that happened where it shifted for me. The first was when I kind of found my why, my purpose, and it was a long story made short is I found my purpose around trust. That as we did a merger, we merged our company and we came together and two great companies come together, but we'd been arch competitors. Now we're brought together and we didn't trust each other, even though we're good people. Right. And I saw the high cost of low trust when the merger wasn't going to be as successful because we didn't trust each other. Then we worked on trust. We tried to intentionally build it, grow it. We did. When we did that, it changed everything. And suddenly we're now having all this success. And so I saw the great return of high trust. And I came out of that experience saying, trust is really what it's all about. Right. We've got to focus on trust. It's the most significant thing we could work on, and it's learnable. It's movable. It's something we can create on purpose. And all the work out there on trust is either too academic or too simplistic, and it's not practical and tangible enough. And I suddenly felt like this is what I should do. Mm-hmm. That I found my why, that I can speak about trust. I believe in this. I've experienced it. And when I found my why, suddenly a lot of the fear went away. And so that was the first, kind of finding my voice, finding my why, finding my purpose. I love the Cherokee birth blessing that says, may you live long enough to know why you were born.
Absolutely.
And I felt like I know what I should talk about. Suddenly, fear went away. And then the second thing was I had to get out of my head and get into others. I had to apply this idea that leadership is stewardship, and to put service above self-interest, and to say it's not about me and how I look. It's about them. It's about others. And so I adopted the mantra, seek to bless, not to impress. Mm-hmm. And I kind of said, I'm not going to be as good as my dad, or, but what's my goal here? To try to impress people? Or am I trying to bless people? And when I suddenly didn't worry about trying to impress, but instead focused on trying to bless with what I felt called to do, my why, the fear dissipated. I got courageous that I'm going to go down this trust path. And I didn't worry about trying to live up, be as like my dad. But instead, I had the opposite feeling. I felt, I am so grateful that I'm standing on the shoulders of a giant. And my father, I felt a sense of stewardship to continue on his legacy. And rather than feeling like I have to carve out my own, I'll do my best to build on what he's done. What a blessing, what a gift that is. And I feel like I can be additive to that with this conversation on trust. And besides, my goal here is not to try to impress anyone, is to try to serve, to try to bless. And so those are the two things. I found my why, and I focused on seeking to bless, not to impress, to put service above self-interest, and it changed everything for me. And I would say a similar thing for any new leader coming in. Maybe you're following an extraordinary leader. Rather than saying, I can never live up to this person, find your why, and then do your best to put service above self-interest. So you're not comparing, but instead see it as what a great opportunity to follow the legacy of a great leader. That gives me an opportunity to maybe I'm standing on the shoulder of a giant, and maybe I can build upon that too.
Absolutely.
So that would be my advice. At least that was what worked for me.
Well, and that just absolutely resonates, right? And it goes right back to that stewardship piece. Your dad walked us down a pathway. You helped us get further down the pathway, and there'll be others who come along to help us continue to grow in our understanding. There was a time to just touch on the book, and we're quickly getting to the end of our conversation. And I think I could do a year's worth of episodes with you and still want to unpack more just from this book, and certainly would encourage others to get it and spend time in it, because I promise you'll be blessed by it, because you are being a blessing. But as we continue this leadership journey, we are in a better place today because of the way that you've built upon the work that your dad started with, and others will come along and continue to build upon that. And that is the stewardship, right? That's
stewardship.
Taking where we are and growing from there, because your dad would expect no less from you. And a great principal would expect no less from the next principal in line than to continue to help that school grow forward, or the school system grow forward for a superintendent. That's
Absolutely.
powerful.
It's actually, to your point, a great illustration of the principle of stewardship.
Yes.
So we love that has happened. We build upon it, as opposed to trying to say it's about me and my identity, my contribution. No, it's about them. It's about others, serving and building upon this and finding our distinctive contribution to that, but always with the mindset of serving.
The mindset of serving.
In fact, could I share this last thought?
Please do. Please.
That part of the trust and inspire approach, as you know so well, because you've really spent time in it, is that I'm trying to say this is a new way of leading, or at least it's new language to describe the kind of leadership that we need today. And I contrast it to kind of the old model, the traditional model. I call it command and control. Mm-hmm. And, that's efficient. And we've become enlightened with it. That's a better version of it, but it's still a kind of a command and control, more traditional hierarchical type model. And the thing is that model is not very relevant in a new world of work, in an education world that has kind of really been challenged with all that's going on in our society and the polarization and, in politics and everything else. And where we've asked so much of educators and we've had such turnover of educators, of teachers, and even administrators, and we've had such burnout. See, to continue kind of to operate with the old model of leadership, command and control, kind of more just all compliance based versus a trust and inspire that's inspiration based, to continue with the old model and it kind of even doubling down on it, saying, let's work harder. I think it's just going to burn people out faster. That's right. And maybe drive them out of the profession faster, because the map is not right. It's not an accurate map of the territory. We need an accurate map of people and of leadership. And I think trust and inspire is a more accurate map. That type of leadership approach will actually energize people instead of burn them out. So the traditional model, command and control, if that's kind of, again, it can be an enlightened version of it, but it's kind of, I think this is the dominant paradigm still in education, but it's also true in business and healthcare and government. It tends to be the dominant mindset still. About 9 out of 10 leaders, the research shows, are still kind of operating out of the command and control paradigm. The problem with that is, especially in today's education climate with such turnover and burnout, to double down on the traditional model, which is not an accurate map of people and of leadership, will, rather than kind of, let's just fight through this with a inaccurate paradigm or an incomplete paradigm, will just have the effect of maybe driving people out of the profession faster, or even burning them out faster. But instead, if we provide a different kind of leadership, trust and inspire, what you do, Rob, and what so many leaders do, where we try to model, we try to trust and inspire and bring out the best that's inside of people, that type of leadership will actually energize and tap into the sense of purpose and meaning and contribution that all educators feel is part of why they go into education, as well as that sense of caring and belonging, which is another reason they go into education. And so there's such great inspiration already in the profession that sometimes our leadership style gets in the way and kind of diffuses it or dilutes it. But instead, we're going to ignite that fire and through the way that we lead. And I think that's why this topic, this trust and inspire, I think is so timely and relevant for today, because of kind of where we are in the profession, in education, with all the challenges that have been put upon us and all the external factors that we're now navigating and having to play with more than ever before. We need to lead in a new way, to trust and inspire our people. And I know that the focus has always been on the students, and I think it should remain there, that's our primary end in mind, that we're trying to help our students succeed. But I think we also need to pay an equal focus on our own people and our own staff and our own teachers, so that we really try to help them succeed, so that they in turn help our students succeed. So we're not taking any focus off the students.
That's right.
We're just elevating the focus onto our own people to unleash their greatness, so they can unleash the greatness of our students. And I think today, our time, it requires a new way of leading. And for some, it's not a new way at all. They've always led this way. And I'm just trying to name it and describe it as trust and inspire, in contrast to the more traditional command and control. So that's the idea behind the book. And then starting with the paradigm of how I view people in leadership, those mindsets, and then starting with the idea that I have stewardships as a leader, to model, to trust, and to inspire. And I think it's timely in education today for all of those reasons.
Absolutely. Like every time you speak, I just find myself leaning closer and closer in, because you're absolutely right on. There's no question that what a school system offers, or what a school offers to the community, is the faculty. That's what we bring to the table, is this incredible faculty. And so we are at our best when we're equipping our faculty and inspiring our faculty and firing their passion. So then, as you shared, they can unleash the greatness in our students. And so really pouring into our teachers is pouring into our students. And I think you are absolutely right on. And, there are educators who they are trust and inspire people, but they have an opportunity to become a leader. And sometimes they fall into this trap, and you named it, command and control, where they feel like, to be a great leader, I've got to be a strong leader. And what that looks like is being very directive and authoritarian. But that's not true strength. And so there might be some who would push into your work to say, trust and inspire, that sounds a little weak to me. I know you address that in the book, but in case there's someone listening, share with us the strength that is trust and inspire.
Yeah, this is a really good point, Rob, because sometimes someone might hear this and say, okay, I like the idea of trust and inspire. Sounds great for me as a person, but hey, we've got compliance issues. We've got safety issues. We've got all these other things. And I've got to make sure I'm strong and authoritative as this leader and the like. And I try to make the point that trust and inspire is in fact very strong. And I take on some of these issues that this is not weak leadership. No, this is strong leadership, because it has high expectations, high accountability. It's just a different kind. And rather than being kind of hierarchical top down, it's more building it into the culture, into the relationship, into the whole expectation of each other. Sometimes people say, well, we got to have structure. You can have structure. Well, I've got to be visionary. You can be a visionary, trust and inspire leader. And sometimes people say, well, there's not enough accountability and expectation. Well, I agree that low expectations inspire no one. So let's not give up that. So I view trust and inspire really as a third alternative. So let me describe it this way. Let's look at command and control and say that's traditional leadership. We might say that's maybe excessively hands-on. The opposite of that is not trust and inspire. I think the opposite of command and control, excessively hands-on, might be what we call abdicate and abandon instead of, command and control. And now I'm just kind of saying, hey, whatever, I trust you, just advocate and abandon. There's no leadership there. There's no vision. There's no direction. That's excessively hands-off. So if command and control is excessively hands-on and advocate and abandon is kind of excessively hands-off, trust and inspire is a third alternative. It's hand in hand.
Ooh.
It's a with paradigm. So here's my premise is a trust and inspire leader can be strong without being forceful. They can be authoritative without being authoritarian. A trust-inspired leader can be decisive without being autocratic. They can even be demanding without being demeaning or overbearing. A trust-inspired leader can be detail-oriented without being distrusting. And a trust-inspired leader can be in charge and have control without being controlling. It's a different kind of control. They do it through the agreements that they build together with others, with expectations and accountability built into the agreement, but they build them together with others as opposed to dictate the agreements at them. They build them together. There's more commitment. There's more buy-in, and people feel empowered. And yet you still have built-in control around expectations and accountability through the agreement you build together. And then you move to self-governance, where I judge myself. I evaluate myself against these high standards we built together and being accountable. So it's very strong leadership. Weak leadership is abdicate and abandon. I acknowledge that's weak. But trust and inspire is strong leadership without being forceful leadership. And it really taps into the best. So I think it's a third alternative, a better way to lead. It still makes sure it's, it navigates the world that we're in, where we got safety and compliance. And there are those issues, but does it in a way that is going to really focus on unleashing the potential, the greatness, the talent that's inside of all of our people, our students and our teachers and our staff members and fellow administrators. And so it's a strong form of leadership. And it's really the kind of leadership that people will respond to today. You can't command and control your way to a high trust culture that inspires. You can't command and control your way to collaboration and innovation. But trust and inspire can achieve all those things. It can build that high trust culture, and it can attract the best people and retain the best people and engage the best people and inspire the best people and bring out the best in people.
Yes.
And help us collaborate and innovate so we stay relevant in this changing world in a way that command and control can't even touch. So such a better way to lead in our new world, and yet still be relevant with the needs and the demands placed upon superintendents and assistant superintendents and principals, but in a way that's the style is not getting in the way of our intent. Instead, this is the style aligning with our intent. Because I believe the intent of educators is beautiful. It's around unleashing greatness, but sometimes our style gets in the way of our intent.
There's no question. It is absolutely true that we truly believe that there is in every seed the potential to be this beautiful flower. It's about creating the conditions so that what was a barren wasteland becomes the field of flowers. And the way we create those conditions is through trust and inspire leadership. Stephen M.R. Covey, you are the man. I appreciate what you have shared today. I appreciate what you have shared in your books. And I do hope that our listeners will give themselves the blessing of spending some time hearing your words through what you have written and really finding, just like I did, much that resonates with inside and fires our own passion, because you hit what is at the heart of great educators, and that's our why. Our why is around empowering others. Thank you so much for being so gracious with your time, my friend.
You are welcome, Rob. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this Ed Leader podcast. I love what you're doing. And I will say this, that, you're a trust and inspire leader. This podcast is a trust and inspire podcast. It kind of is believing that there's greatness inside of all of our leaders. And it's trying to say, here's principles and tools and ideas to unleash that so that they can in turn unleash it in their schools, with their people, with their students. And so the whole approach is this. And in a world that's heavy into command and control, we need models of trust and inspire. And those models can become mentors. And Rob, you are both a model and through this podcast, a mentor to many. And I commend you in the great work that you're doing. What an honor to be with you.
Thank you, my friend. And I aspire to be all those things you just said. And again, just want to say thank you. Stephen M. R. Covey, you have been just incredibly gracious with your time. Like I said, I could talk to you forever. I just want to thank you for the work that you've done, for what you've shared, both through the speed of trust, through trust and inspire, how truly great leaders unleash greatness in others. And just reflect to you that your words have hit fertile ground as I've shared them with educators and as educators have discovered them and shared them with me because others brought those words to me. And so thank you for seeing in all of us potential and helping us grow forward to performance. Thank you, sir.
Oh, absolutely, Rob. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Great to be with you.
I hope that you enjoyed our time together with Stephen M. R. Covey. The world needs trust and inspire leaders, and we need to each let go of the last vestiges of command and control in our own leadership practices. I'm interested in your thoughts. Please keep sharing your feedback on Twitter or X at Dr._Rob_Jackson through email or by commenting directly on the show notes page. If you think that it's been helpful, please share the episode and podcast with your network of friends and colleagues. Thank you for spending time with me today, and thank you for all that you do for every student, every teacher, and every staff member. You are making a difference. If no one else has told you, I want you to know that I believe in you. Good day.
Thank you for listening to the Ed Leader Podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and consider leaving a review with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so that we may continue to grow the Ed Leader community. We hope that you have enjoyed your time with Dr. Jackson. Until next time.